Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is lesson 5.8 of our inequality unit, and this lesson focuses on two issues of inequality, gender inequality and global inequality. Just a reminder, you're going to set up all of your notes Cornell Notes style. You're going to show me your notebook once you finish taking your notes for me to check it off, and then you will complete an exit ticket that you will turn into me once you complete taking your notes. And reminder, you are going to need your notes to complete the exit ticket, so please make sure you take good notes. Go ahead, set up your title and objective. The title is Gender and Global Inequality. And the objective for today is in order for students to analyze gender and global inequality, they will, take Cornell Notes and respond to an exit ticket. So those do not need to be in Cornell Notes style. The title should be at the top center of your page and the objective should be just underneath it. There is no do now for today's lesson. Gender inequality. The way that we determine gender and gender roles actually depends on one's culture. So what might be familiar for a female and a male in one country or one culture may not be so in another. For example, the Prime Minister of New Zealand is single, in her late 30s, and pregnant with her first child. That would be hard to do in other countries where women don't have as much independence and as much acceptance being a single woman in that position of power. So it does depend slightly on the culture that you're from. Discrimination that we see when it comes to gender, we tend to see discrimination when it comes to sexual harassment, wages, that means the amount of money they earn, childcare, healthcare premiums, participation in politics, and unequal treatment in school classrooms. So let me go back to a couple of these really quickly. First of all, childcare. The way people are discriminated against in childcare is typically with the women. The woman is typically penalized or expected to take time off when there's a child care issue. So if her kid is sick and they need to stay home, it's typically the woman who does that. And therefore, the woman is discriminated against in her job because she has children that she tends to care for. Healthcare premiums. When it comes to healthcare premiums, women tend to pay higher in their healthcare insurance than men do because they go to the doctor more frequently. The GEI is the Gender Equity Index. This is the ranking that they use to determine inequality based on education, economic participation, and empowerment. So it gives us a good idea of how much inequality there is in a set culture based off of using this index. We're going to do something kind of similar to this in our class. You guys are going to do a little bit of a survey to get a better idea of what kind of inequalities exist at Eastern. Moving on to global inequality. The reason why I put both of these together is because global inequality and gender inequality tend to go hand in hand. We tend to see nations that don't have the same global inequality to also have bigger disparities with gender inequality. So for example, a lot of the countries in the Middle East are globally unequal based off their economic status, and they also, in the same token, tend to treat women with a little bit less respect. Now, those two things don't necessarily go together, but we just seem to see a slight correlation between the two. Globalization is the increasing interaction between people or companies on a worldwide scale. Essentially, if you look at your phone, your clothes, anything on you, they probably came from a multitude of other nations, and because of that, we have globalization. Global inequity refers to income inequality, gender inequality, and differences in life expectancy. So countries are typically divided into three categories when it comes to this. The first is going to be the core countries. The second is the semi-periphery countries, and the third is periphery countries. So the core you could think is to be the most developed, typically the highest educated, and those are countries like the United States, Canada, for example. Semi-periphery countries tend to have a little less education, so therefore there's a wider gap of inequality based on gender, as well as just income and life expectancy in general. And those are countries like Mexico. And then we have periphery countries that are very poor, tend to struggle a lot economically. And one example of that would be Jamaica. There are three thoughts or perspectives on global inequality that we're just going to cover today. There are more, but these kind of cover the wide array of the different perspectives on global inequality. The first is the functionalist perspective, and this is where they see inequality as a necessity. In other words, you have to have inequality because it allows those who are qualified to fill important roles and receive the benefits of those roles. Conflict theory says it is not a necessity, and it's extremely harmful and destructive because of the unequal distribution of resources. It also creates immovable winners and losers. And what I mean by immovable winners and losers, I mean like once you are struggling, then it's hard to move up from that. So if you're poor, it's hard to get out of being poor. If you're rich, it's hard to get out of being rich. So they both have these statuses or these classes that are very hard to get out of. Then the final is dependency theory, and this is a claim that global inequality is due to colonialism. Think of colonialism of Africa. So that is the idea, and we're going to read more about this too, but this is the idea that because of colonialism, people didn't have control over their own economies, and therefore their economies struggled due to a variety of other factors of being controlled by another country. This is going to lead us right into our exit ticket. I want you to answer these 3 questions to be as specific as possible, and you can go back and use the notes that you've taken earlier in class to do so. If you have any questions, please just come on up and ask.